Yeah, good afternoon, Rahul. A warm welcome to you on behalf of APAC News Network. APAC News Network is a media organization headquartered out of Noida, and we have a pan India presence. And outside India, we are present in Singapore, Malaysia, and Dubai. Primarily, we focus across multiple verticals, especially on technology deployments across government, healthcare, education, BFSI, manufacturing, startups, and overall enterprise IT.
Okay.
We have this series, APAC Dialogue, where we basically talk with the industry leaders and where we focus on things like their solutions and services, what sort of go-to-market strategy they follow for that, what's the outreach program or how the outreach campaign is devised, which are the verticals that they are targeting with their solutions, what has been the impact of the pandemic as a solution vendor, what are your USPs, basically differentiators over competitors. We would like to start the discussion specifically. Avaya, we know, is a leader in unified communications. So specifically for BFSI sector, and with keeping in mind the Indian market, if you can update us on the solutions and services in the Avaya portfolio for BFSI specifically.
Okay. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure speaking in your forum. Basically, BFSI is a very vast term, so it includes banking, financial services, and insurance as well. And if you look at most of the sector, it is completely becoming a technology sector now. So if you've seen banks, most of the new investments are happening in neo banks, or banks are going digital completely. And similarly, if you look at insurance, there's more and more investment happening in insurtech rather than the core insurance companies as such. So what is happening in the industry right now is while the banks and the insurance large companies are focusing more on the products and making them as flexible as possible, we have the insurtechs and the neobanks which are actually leading the entire foray, and they are coming up with a lot of innovations not only in the products, like they are targeting more and more of the underserved and the unserved segments, but they're also coming up with huge amount of technological innovations, because of which the reach is increasing significantly. And that's where the whole industry is going as such. Just to give you a glimpse of it, the upside of this whole thing, insurance today is said to be in the range of 3.8% of the entire population is said to be insured. So you can just imagine the amount of upside available for insurance itself. And similar, not as bad as that, but even banking has a huge upside to it. So if you look at it from the Avaya perspective, we are focused more for these banks, insurance, and financial services. We are focused more around the customer experience piece. So what we mean is wherever a customer has an experience of that organization, we want to be a part of that. So whether the customer physically visits a branch, whether the customer is online through a video or through a portal or through a web chat or through any other means, we want to be a part of it. In fact, the whole experience is moving from a contact center to what we call as an experience economy, which means today it's no more limited to just chat and voice bots. Right now, it's gone to Alexas of the world. I can have watches on my wrist which tell the insurance company what is the kind of health activity I'm doing, and that can even trigger the kind of premiums that the insurance company can come to me with. While this is still new in India, may not even be legal as yet, but globally these are already legal approaches to technology and insurance. So where we want to make a play is wherever a customer experiences the organization, we want to be part of it. And when the customer is experiencing an organization, it is not just about when the customer actually touches the organization through a portal or through anything else, but it is also the kind of experience the people sitting in that organization give to the customer, which means the employee experience also becomes extremely important. And that is where the unified communication comes in play. So I, as an employee in the organization, how can I communicate with all the other employees at the at the click of a mouse, or at the wrist of my fingers? I'm able to talk to anyone I want, get them involved, and solve the customer problem. So our area of focus are these two things: unified experience for the people within the organization, and the experience management for the customers outside the organization. That's where
Okay,
we focus.
thanks. So when you talk about both unified experience as well as experience management, one big challenge here, and this has perhaps been accentuated in these last couple of years during the pandemic situation. Now, once the customer, or it can be the employee, as you say, so both the, if I may use acronyms, EX and CX, both here depends on uh, how do you ensure the uniformity and the standardization in that experience?
Mhm.
One, because otherwise the standard of experience can vary from time to time. It's a little bit time specific, and it can be even medium specific. Medium in the sense of, if you are coming through the portal, you are coming through the bots, or it can be a telephonic, or it can be even a whatever physical, or so the standardization and uniformity, and how can a solution like yours help in providing that standardization and uniformity?
So actually, if you look at it, the industry is moving away from standardization. It's actually moving towards hyper personalization. So it is no more. I have a standard response to Rahul Bhave, whether he comes on a portal or a chatbot or a voice call, is not the way things are happening anymore. So it is more about. So if you see, you download any app today, it asks you whether you want to allow that app to look at your location. Okay. Similarly, there are apps now which are asking for multiple other permissions. So AI is being used to decide whether Rahul Bhave is in his office, or is he at home, and what kind of response what kind of medium I would like to approach him with, and what kind of a response I can give him, right? So if, again, it also depends on the kind of escalation I'm doing. For example, I'm calling for something like a complaint for my electricity, then an immediate response is required, right? So I cannot divert Rahul Bhave to an electronic response. I have to pick up a call, talk to him, solve his problem right on the spot. Whereas if I'm asking for loyalty points, or if I'm talking about something else, I can actually move Rahul Bhave to a digital medium and have him resolve his problem there, because it's much easier to do it there than actually going through an IVR. And given our today's population, which is mostly millennials and the people or the younger generation before that, everybody is focused on mediums which are not really voice, which are typically chatbots and all the other things. So it's all moving towards hyper personalization, and that's where we are actually focused on. So we work on technologies like speech bots. We've got speech analytics softwares which tell us what kind of sentiment the customer is coming in, who should be the right agent to talk to him, whether I should do it on a electronic medium, or whether I should actually talk to him, or whether I should send somebody to his house. It all depends on the customer's content, the customer's intent, the customer's mood right now. All that needs to be taken into perspective. So it's more around that we focus on, and that's how it is today.
Thanks. So the hyper personalization you talked about, that's obviously the way the it is going. So my question is, see, you earlier touched upon one. There are the traditional banks and traditional insurance players, and even the non-banking financial services (NBFCs). Uh, though their business might be traditional, even they are undergoing significant digital transformation now.
Correct.
So one those entities, and then the typical more the digital entities, the neobanks or the insurtechs you mentioned. So in this era of hyper personalization, how are the conversations, what as a solution provider you used to have with the banks and insurance players traditionally changed now? And this is both for the banks and insurance as well as for the neobanks and insurtechs. How has those conversations changed?
Well, that's a very interesting question because the conversations have completely changed. So it is no more about Avaya's contact center and whether what are the workflows in the IVR. All those things are all passe. Okay. So everybody, there are some insurance companies which are telling us, I don't want any voice calls to happen. I want everything digital. If customer has a requirement also, I will do the social media listening using Avaya social media listener. Go to the social media, understand what is looking for. My team will automatically, or my bots will automatically pitch the solutions to those people, and we can actually do the selling online itself. So there are today insurance companies and even neobanks which are talking about complete digital, no voice at all. So the discussions have completely moved that side. However, it again depends on what product you're talking about. So where there are simple products, you can do all that. Where there are complex products like lending, etc., where you need a lot of discussions to happen, the discussions are still around voice quite a bit. However, there is a lot of discussion happening around digital deflection, which means whatever I need to do on voice, that much only I will do on voice. Rest, I will move the customer to a digital platform like a chatbot or a portal, and he can solve his problem there on his own. So that's the kind of discussions that are happening. And today, the second biggest focus is around understanding the customer. So far, these customers, the traditional companies have not really focused on really understanding the customer. And that's where speech analytics and all those tools come in, where I really understand what the customer actually wants. That coupled with social media and using AI, I'm able to combine both of them and actually decide what this customer can ask for, what I can offer to him, all of that. So the agent today sitting at the even on a call, the agent on his desk has all the information what this customer has done before. He came to my portal, he did something on the chatbot, now he's come on the voice call, and it can even tell what this customer's history has been. So what is the chance he will be calling me for? That kind of personalization has happened. And the major difference, like you correctly said, I remember when I used to ask for an upgrade seat on Jet Airways sometime back. If that call gets missed somewhere in between, I have to start the call all over again, right? Go through the entire IVR and come through that piece. Today that is gone. So even if the call drops, the next call can be diverted to that same agent, and on his screen he will have full data of what discussion has happened, and the call can start directly from there. So there's a huge change which has happened, like you correctly said, and those are the exact technologies that we work on.
Okay, so I just want specifically on the digital deflection part you mentioned.
Mhm.
How has been your experience? And again, particularly, I would focus more on the banks and insurance companies which were traditional,
Mhm.
because they still have the significantly more customer base. So, how agile or adept they are in this digital transformation piece, digital deflection piece rather. And the other thing, in addition, after that, I would like you to talk on. See, when you are talking about the banking and insurance, especially for the traditional ones, the financial inclusion part remains a significant topic still. And when you talk about financial inclusion, that's still a huge reach of potential customers who are not so tech savvy, neither do they have maybe the requisite level of connectivity. They have challenged, connectivity challenged, I may say. So how would you address the improvement in that customer experience, especially in that large portion
Okay.
of customer who are not so tech savvy?
Okay. So to answer your first question, quite a bit of the traditional banks and insurance companies are still stuck with a lot of traditional systems. Okay, even at the back end, whether it is core banking, core insurance, or even the contact centers which integrate to these things, are very very I would say, monolithic in nature. And even the backend data assimilation systems are very very old. They're still using layers in between, and you don't really have the things like a data lake. And how do you form from a data lake, how do you come with an analysis? All those things are still taking quite a bit of time, and it is going to take time, not because the banks are slow, but because everything is very complicated with a bank, right? It's not so simple. So that's where what we are doing now is, with a lot of the banks, we are saying that instead of trying to ramp up your existing contact centers or customer experience platforms, we will directly come to you with a cloud solution where we have all the applications that are necessary for this transformation already on cloud. I don't have to come and do R&D at your premise at all. And since it all sits on top of REST APIs, can directly connect with all of their backend systems and do whatever is necessary to do that. I don't need complicated data lakes, etc., at the back to do any of this stuff. So cloud has transformed this journey into a much faster process as compared to what would have been on premise. And a lot of banks now are more comfortable with cloud because the entire data center can be hosted within India itself. So Avaya's own private cloud is now going to be based in India. So I don't have to worry about data going outside, which is the biggest condition for a bank or insurance to actually go on cloud. So those things are already been put in place. And to answer your second question, which is more around how do I reach people who are the underserved or the unserved, I was under the impression that for these underserved, unserved, even in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, it would be very difficult. At one time, we used to think we'll have to go with an iPad or some kind of a document, talk to those people, get data, do a transaction, and then separately, upload that transaction into backend systems. But today, when you actually go to these towns, it is not at all like that. If you look at Uber, you look at Ola, or any of the e-commerce platforms, majority of the business is coming from the rural and semi-urban areas. So people are already using electronic technology to do all that. And with banks and all these people, also a lot of onboarding is happening at a rural level using technology itself. So if you look at, when we talk about a cloud solution, the entire piece is already on cloud. All you need to do is just go to that edge location wherever it is, and transaction can happen on cloud from any device. So for us, it is, the reach is not really big of an issue. Even from a language perspective, if you look at speech analytics or speech bots that we have, they are multilingual. So I don't have to worry about whether it's only English or Hindi or English as well. We can do both.
That sounds interesting. Another very key aspect here is overall BFSI is perhaps the most regulated sector, and which requires so many compliances, and you need to conform to those compliances.
Correct.
Now, as we talk about things like the digital deflection or an overall shift in how the customer experience or the engagement with customer moving towards a digital paradigm, uh, so the compliances and conforming to these also need to undergo a transformation. Considering the highly regulated nature of this industry, how fast that is happening, and what are still the challenges?
Well, I think compliances are already in line with what is happening in the market. You would have seen the recent budget announcements, and the way even Indian government moving so fast around cryptocurrency, etc., is a sign that the government is, quite in line with what is happening in the market. And from a compliance with respect to banks, insurance, etc., from a technology perspective, that is already taken care of. I mean, if you look at the kind of security compliances that we show, right from PCI DSS to all the latest compliances that are required, they're already in place. If you look at all the data centers today in the country, they're all already compliant with the banking and insurance regulations. So I don't think that compliance is anymore an issue. It was an issue till the time things were outside India, but now even speech bots, where you need to really work on the speech, it doesn't require the data to go outside India. We can do it in India, especially with the multilingual things. And to add to that, what has happened is earlier we used to depend only on some of the international companies for these kind of things. Today, with lot of startups in India, that has become much easier. Now, startups are able to do all this stuff in India without having to work with the global giants as well.
Okay, and the compliance, as you said, has become much easier. Within compliances, you touched upon the security compliances, and that's another key issue. Now, my question is, since the digital engagement scope and levels have increased, which also means more and more heterogeneous devices coming into the network, and heterogeneous devices, heterogeneous networks coming into the overall ecosystem, which can cause certain compromise in the cybersecurity. So, how can an uniform communication solution like yours take care of that cybersecurity aspects in this heterogeneous environment?
So we already have systems in place which take care of cybersecurity, especially related to voice. So we've got SBCs, which session border controllers, which take care of all these things as far as voice is concerned. As far as data is concerned, most of the banks already have all these security pieces already in place. They have a huge security AppSec teams within their organizations, which ensure whatever we are doing within the bank is already as per the AppSec clearances, and those match with what RBI has been asking them to do. So there is nothing separately to be done as far as Avaya is concerned. Yes, there are a lot of security companies which work on this to ensure that these compliances are in place with the bank, but that is something outside the scope of what Avaya does. Wherever voice is concerned, SBCs already take care of those compliances.
Okay. And from an aware perspective, especially from an unified communication environment, what would you list as your two or three key differentiators or unique differentiators over, say, competitors in the unified communication space, especially with respect to BFSI?
Yeah. So the most important differentiator we have is when you say unified communication, it should truly mean unified, in the sense that I can communicate with the customer from any mode of communication that I want, that is from the outside. As well as when you talk about employee experience, you should be able to communicate across the board. So whether it is chat, whether it's email, whether it's any other form of communication, it should support. And when you talk about collaboration also, today what happens is most of my competitors have got collaboration tools, but they don't have telephony systems which can embed into that. Since Avaya has been in telephony for quite some time, we have a combined solution of telephony and collaboration together, and it is actually much more economically inclined as compared to our competitors. So that helps us really master the game, where we can bring in the telephony, you can bring in the UCPs, which is the collaboration, and finally you can also link the customer experience to that, because end of the day we are all working for the customer. And if I have a separate environment which does UC and a separate environment which does contact center, it doesn't make sense at all. So we have something which goes all across, and we also have a cloud which takes care of this end to end. And third, and the most important point is, all this thing is composable, in the sense I can integrate with any third party. I can bring in partner developed tools onto this platform. It's eventually going to become a CPaaS, or a platform as a service, and not just a CCaaS or a UCaaS environment.
Okay, so when you are talking about it being a this CPaaS environment, I'll put one question. Now, primarily, your different components of telephony, collaboration, and these tools, you said you are sort of integrating them in a cloud platform.
Correct.
And as you earlier mentioned, that now there is significant intake in the semi-urban or rural areas, or the tier 2, tier 3, or maybe even further down tier 4, tier 5 cities.
Correct.
One challenge remains for a country, vast country like India, is still the quality of internet connectivity is not uniform across the country, and in
True.
many of these smaller areas, there is so what we you're seeking. How do you ensure that the quality of connectivity doesn't become a hindrance subsequently?
Well, as far as data is concerned, I don't think that quality of connectivity is an issue in the country now. Data is not a big issue because data itself is not a very heavy technology. Voice, yes, what you correctly said is an issue for us, because voice is a very heavy technology, and you want to work across the country, there are issues with voice technology. Having said that, we typically I mean, Avaya or any of my larger competitors, they already have a very thin footprint on voice as well, because there is a specific technology with which that voice transmission happens, and that ensures that the footprint on the overall bandwidth is very very less. So for us, so far we have not had much of a voice issue or a data issue across any of these networks. Yes, like you correctly said, when we actually increase our expansion into the rural areas, that remains to be seen how good or bad that remains.
Okay, okay, thanks. Another aspect you touched upon earlier was when you're working in that CPaaS mode, you're working with a lot of other partners, if I may say. They can be the developers or cloud providers or entities like that. So, in keeping that in mind, what is the stated go-to-market strategy for Avaya? Do you work in a consortium kind of model? How do you approach the potential clients?
So we have a collaborative strategy from day one. For the last 5 years, if you've seen, we have something called Avaya and Friends, which means other technologies like Verint or Tetherfy and multiple other technologies. They work along with us. So we are no more just Avaya. It's called Avaya and Friends, and that's where the composable architecture comes into play, because there are a lot of new things, new innovations happening in the market, and those will 100% drive the market going into the future. So it's very important for people like us to tie up with these players and bring value to our customers. So wherever there are partners and developers who are creating new technologies which can add more value to what we are doing, we typically onboard them onto the Avaya and Friends platform, and we go to the market together. In some of the products, they are already part of our product stack, like Verint, etc. And in some cases, we work with them as partners.
Okay. And any of the, say, marquee customers in BFSI that you can indicate to us?
Well, in BFSI, at least I can tell you the top three banks are with us. Uh,
Okay.
from a end-to-end customer experience perspective, uh, the top two insurance companies should be with us pretty soon. Let's see how that goes, but that is still in the process. But if you look at the BFSI sector in some form or the other, I would say about 60% of the BFSI sector we are already present. Whether it is some places it's pure UC, some places it will be contact center.
Okay. And how about the see, other than the three, as you might say, the main constituents of the BFSI ecosystem were the banks, the insurance, and the NBFCs. But other than that, the fintechs itself, and they are typically, obviously, since being sort of born in the cloud, they are digital natives, so they are very
Mm,
active digitally.
true.
How has the your reception been amongst the fintechs?
Fintechs are still, a little bit, how should I say, fintechs do a lot of their own development, right? So a lot of their technologies are developed by them. And it is only for some of the core technologies like speech or telephony or contact centers is what they talk to us. So it's still a long way before we actually, come to a balanced or a stable situation where this is what a fintech will do and this is what we will do. It is still in between. So there are some fintechs who depend on us for two, three kind of technologies, whereas some fintechs say that we will do everything on our own. So it's still an evolving journey. I think once they come, when they're in their initial stages, they really don't need a lot of new technology from us. It is only when they reach the unicorn status where the volumes are very, very high and complexities build in, multi languages come in. That's when they really look at us for technologies. And we are also focusing accordingly. So we are working mostly with the larger unicorns and some of the would be unicorns right now. And those are the places where our technology would really add value.
And we briefly touched upon this earlier, but looking back at the last 2 years during the pandemic,
Mhm.
that has definitely accelerated this shift among customers more towards a digital mode.
Correct.
So, how did you manage that change? Because in some cases, maybe the financial organizations might not have planned that shift so fast, but they were compelled to do so
Sure.
just to even retain the customer.
Sure.
I'm talking about how did you see the shift among customers? Among customers, I meant the financial organizations, for them, a to retain their customers and to add new customers in this period. So how did you see the shift?
Yep. So, like you correctly said, the shift or the majority technical shift happened because of COVID. A lot of discussion was happening around going electronic, going digital, but COVID really made all the change happen. And luckily for us, in that era, we were already on the digital journey for the consumers and for the customers. So most of our customers quickly moved to work from home from their own perspective. We had the technologies already in place, so we made that happen. More than 150,000 of our customer people were moved to work from home in a very, very short time. So that itself was a big achievement for us. Having said that, because of the Avaya and friends and some of our technological advances, we could also move a lot of their consumers from visiting premises to actually moving to digital. Like I said, the digital deflection piece. Some of our customers are also benefiting from our video contact centers, which means where earlier people had to actually come to a location to do some work, they can now do it over a video contact center itself. And everything can be digital, right from payment to documents, everything can be digital. So a lot of these changes have actually accelerated during the pandemic. And I shouldn't say we all benefited from it because it was a pandemic, but it certainly helped move the digital paradigm very, very fast for both the customers as well as us.
Thanks. So, my last question would be a little bit looking into the future, maybe looking at the next 3 to 4 quarters. What are going to be your two, three key focus areas? That can be in terms of products or services, geographical, or any other expansion. But what are going to be, from an Avaya BFSI perspective, your key initiatives or focus?
I think our biggest focus area in the coming 3 4 quarters is going to be ensuring our cloud is rolled out in the country. So first is going to be our private cloud, which will come up very soon in a month or two, and that will be followed by our public cloud by the end of our financial year. So those are going to be our bigger focus areas for the country, and that's going to take all the attention from our side. The second biggest focus area for us is also going to be, like you said, the fintechs or the neobanks or the insurtechs. Those are the places where there is still a lot of work to be done. Some technologies which we have which cannot be created in house, and those are the technologies we're going to focus on for these kind of customers. So for me, these are going to be the two biggest areas this year, and let's hope everything pans out the way we plan.
Great. Thanks for your time. That was a very interactive discussion. And really appreciate that. And I'm sure all the listeners and people who are watching and will subsequently watch this interaction, it will be highly beneficial for them. Thank you for your time. And
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Nice talking to you.